Part 85. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 842. Anyway, no one usually comes to Lily's place. Her location happens to be remote and humid, which is a good place to collect goo worms. For Lily, it is a perfect opportunity. As long as she can collect goo worms, and attract the medicinal materials to the voodoo insects. The rest is very simple as long as you feed the voodoo bugs with their essence and blood regularly. Having made up her mind, Lily first cleaned out the collected medicinal materials and threw them into the river. Some of the fresh medicinal materials were soaked in water for a long time. Some of them could not be used now. But fortunately, Lily collected a lot today, and still keeping most of the useful ones out, she first took the elixir fire that the original owner had saved before and preheated the cauldron. Lily threw the medicinal materials in according to the order in the original owner's memory, and waited until the bitter smell of the medicinal materials spread through the cauldron. When she came out, Lily breathed a sigh of relief. All she had to do next was to wait for time. It took about half a month from starting the furnace to getting the pill. During this period, Lily didn't stare at it like the original owner. Dan furnace, but began to practice physical training. The original owner is the 5 spiritual roots. Among all people with spiritual roots, the 5 spiritual roots are the worst because they have the same attraction to every kind of spiritual energy. This also results in the fact that no one with 5 spiritual powers will be attracted to the 5 spirits. People with strong roots are particularly partial to them, and the main reason why spiritual power is absorbed very slowly is because they cancel each other out. But as soon as Lily started to practice physical skills, the masses of spiritual energy rushed into her body. Lily's body was only in the early stage of chi refining. Once such a large amount of spiritual energy poured into her body, a lot of spiritual energy did not remain at all. If it doesn't last, it's wasted again. Recalling the mental method that Luo Chen taught Lily in the plot, Lily was not ready to practice this mental method at the moment. First of all, Jianzhong's mental method was not very good. In terms of subtlety, it is not even as good as the Tao Te Ching. Life in the world of immortality is extremely long, so it is a good time to practice the Tao Te Ching. In addition, when the original owner practiced the mental skills of the sword sect, he was deprived of his cultivation and kicked out of the sword sect because he provoked Chen Wantang. In a sense, the original owner in the plot was no longer a person before his death. Then there are the people from Jianzhong. Since Li Bei doesn't want to owe Luo Chen any more favors, Lily naturally doesn't practice the sword sect heart technique. The original owner of the set of heart techniques is not very familiar with it, and Lily is not sure whether she will encounter a place she doesn't understand in the future and will go there again. She asked Luo Chen for advice, so she quickly decided that she wanted to practice the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching was familiar to her and easy to use. After practicing it many times, there will be no trouble. At the beginning, the power of the Tao Te Ching may not be as good as other exercises, but it will become more powerful later on. As long as you give her enough time, it may not be a problem to move mountains and seas, call thunder and rain. So in my heart, after turning her mind around, she carefully guided the spiritual energy that entered her body and began to move around her body according to the Tao Te Ching's formula. At the beginning, there was not much mana left in the body because of the original root bone. But during the few days of refining the elixir, she took the trouble to do the same actions. After a few days, spiritual power began to be trapped in her body, and a thin stream of spiritual power began to flow in the body according to the flow direction of the Tao Te Ching. It started to flow slowly. According to the classification of the world of cultivation, the spiritual power can be kept in the body and run. This has almost reached the level of the middle stage of chi refining. Once it reached the middle stage of chi refining, Lily immediately stopped, and the fire in the cauldron burned very vigorously. The fragrance of elixirs came from the stone chamber. Only then did Lily realize that she was so hungry that her chest was touching her back. She had been locked in the stone room for several days. The hourglass that had been prepared for 10 days in the corner of the room had already missed half of it. Ellie Behe's body has not yet reached the foundation building stage, and now she is just like a mortal. You need to eat. The reason why you haven't felt hungry in the past few days is that Lily was concentrating on practicing and neglected some other things. Secondly, the spiritual energy surrounded her during the practice and entered her body in large amounts. The spiritual power invisibly nourished her body and reduced her need for food, so Lily didn't feel hungry until she relaxed after entering the middle stage of chi refining. The elixir that was originally refined in the furnace was almost taking shape now, and there were even faint silvery light patterns on the surface of the elixir. Lily had never seen such a scene in the plot, so Lily ate it. Shock. The quality of this furnace of condensing pills seems to be much better than those refined by the original owner before, and the elixir is formed quickly. Logically speaking, a furnace of condensing pills should be formed in 8 or 9 days, and the pills should be collected around the 10th day. The elixir can be made into about 2 or 3 pills, which is already a high success rate for novices. However, this furnace of elixirs has already started to take shape in only about 4 or 5 days, and it looks full of energy, which can be seen through the lid of the cauldron. Lily even saw that there seemed to be about a dozen pills in the furnace inside, and she felt a little confused. However, something happened to the elixir at this time, and she didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Lily was so hungry that she felt panicked, and was going to go out to find something to eat first to fill her stomach. Although the Sword sect is a cultivating sect, there are many new disciples in the sect every year, and not every disciple can reach the level of the foundation building stage in the remote valley, so there is still a dining hall, and the dining hall here is reserved for Ellie Behe. It was not a good memory. After the death of her parents, Ellie Behe felt what the situation was like. People who used to clamor to call her little junior sister, after the death of the master and his wife of Tianxiang Palace, first saw Ellie Behe. She was considered respectful to her when she was taken into the sect master's section. However, as time went by, it became clear that the sect master didn't like her very much, and his attitude toward her became worse. Sometimes Ellie Behe might not get her turn. Most of those who work in the cafeteria are ordinary disciples of the outer section. They are the mortals with the lowest spiritual roots selected by the Sword sect every year and are admitted into the section if they are related and have good luck. They can enter the building in their lifetime. In the foundation period, you can be promoted to an inner disciple and enter the inner section. If you are unlucky and cannot enter the foundation period, you can only live as an outer disciple. To put it nicely, the outer disciples are also disciples of the Sword sect, but in fact they are not much different from a handyman. Most of the inner disciples look down on such people and treat them like ants. The same outer disciples treat the inner disciples. There is also a lot of jealousy, but most people are of low strength and cannot afford to offend the inner disciples. Sometimes they have no choice but to swallow their anger when they are wronged. Under such circumstances, the relationship between the two parties is tense. People like Ellie Behe, who is not strong enough but has an excellent background, people who were treated coldly for some reason became easy targets for bullying and anger in the eyes of the outer disciples. In the plot, after Ellie Behe was deprived of her cultivation and expelled by the master of the Sword sect, she also became one of the outer disciples of the Sword section. In the eyes of the inner disciples, she was a shame and she dared to provoke Chen Wantang. In the eyes of the disciples, she was another inner disciple, as if they could find some pleasure in her by bullying her, so that in the end Ellie Behe couldn't stay in the Sword sect at all, and finally left the Sword sect. At this time, when Lily came to the dining hall, it was not the usual time to eat. Several outer disciples were sitting lazily at the door, handling the ingredients with lifeless expressions. When they saw Lily coming, they obviously saw Lily. But he deliberately pretended not to recognize her and called her. "Junior sister, bring me a bucket of water," Situations like this have happened before. The original owner was still young, and his strength was still at the early stage of chi refining. He could lift a bucket of water, but he might not be able to walk a few steps. If in the past, when she heard someone ordering her, he would not be willing to do it, but knowing her identity and believing that doing more is worse than doing less, she would reluctantly obey and fetch water, but now Lily heard what this person said. Couldn't help but asked. Is the rice ready? I heard that this little disciple of the inner sect, who had been quite obedient in the past, not only did not obey and asked for water this time, but also asked if the rice was cooked. His expression was exactly the same as that of the losers in the inner sect who came in based on connections. Those few outsiders, the disciples, suddenly became a little angry. Normally, it's okay for everyone to be angry with others. Although everyone is in the chi refining stage, those disciples have their backers, but what does this Lily mean? Her parents were both dead long ago, and no one would support her, so she dared to act like this. Several outer disciples threw away the things in their hands, and a young man wearing grey coarse cloth couldn't help opening his mouth to curse. Get up. I don't know how to practice gong, I don't know how to lift water, and I know how to eat all day long when I open my mouth. Can you do any tricks after eating? If you don't have food, get out. If you want to get out, why don't you show me? In the past, she didn't have to wait for others to yell at her to get out. He would feel a little guilty first. Her cultivation was not deep, her parents were both dead, she had poor qualifications, and those around her, from the way people feel about her and her own understanding, she seems to be a freeloader, always feeling inferior in front of others. But at this moment Lily doesn't feel like she's sorry for anyone if she wants to eat a bowl of rice. Lily's parents had made great contributions to the sword section. Even if the two of them died and left, how many bowls of rice could one child eat for the sword sect? Both the couple died in the war. Logically speaking, they died for Jianzong. Jianzong should have treated the daughters of these two people well. Otherwise, if he had known that his daughter would be treated like this if he stayed, whether the couple is willing to sacrifice for the sword sect again is unknown. Are you looking for a fight? I look down on trash like you the most. You occupy the quota of inner disciples, but you are completely useless. All you do is eat, drink and chew, and I haven't seen you develop any skills. It's great to have a backstage. If you want to eat, the leftovers are waiting behind the door. Who do you think you are? Come on, do you think your parents are still alive? You bitch. If you dare to be sharp-tongued, fight, I'll ruin your mouth, and see if you dare to beg for food again. The young man clenched his fist fiercely and raised it in front of Lily, thinking that she was just an ignorant child with no father or mother. Although she was the disciple of the sect master, she was not favored. Even if she was frightened, she probably could not even see the sect master's face and dare not complain, so she became more and more emboldened. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 843. Lily glanced at the outer disciple calmly and was not frightened by him. My father was the elder of the sect, and my mother was the master of Tianxiang Palace. The two of them fell in the battle for the sect master, and they had some problems with the section. I have made great contributions, and it has only been more than a year now. Even if I am not a disciple of the master, I will still have to face hardships to eat. If I sue the sect, you, an ordinary disciple of the outer sect, dare to treat the daughter of the former elder like this. I have fallen out of favor, how can you be better than me? As soon as Lily finished speaking, the young man's face suddenly turned pale. Almost all outer disciples had no connections or backing, otherwise anyone who had connections would have entered by now. In the inner sect, in the world of immortality, human lives are like ants. If an outer sect disciple makes a mistake, no one will take care of him if he does. Lily doesn't care about the young man's ugly face and continues. I sue you for not giving me food. Even if the master is angry with me because he thinks I'm nosy, I'm not afraid now. That's what I am anyway. But you are different. If I sue you, it won't matter whether I lose favor or not. If you do this, you will all die. She was not favored by the sect master in the first place. Even if she lost his favor, her life would be the same as now. Even if she wants to eat, she has to make her own decisions. The sect master of the sword sect has long forgotten about her. All in all, Lily wouldn't be afraid that the master of the sword sect would dislike her if she really made a fuss. The young man thought about what she said, and it was indeed true. Lily would have fallen out of favor at most when the incident broke out, but she was not favored in the first place, but he and others might be executed by the sect master for the sake of reputation. The young man and another outer disciple sitting aside looked at each other, and their faces were a little livid. They didn't expect that this damn girl Ellie Behi would not be seen for a few days. She has become less weak and easy to bully than before, but now these people don't dare to embarrass her anymore. They bitterly went into the house to get something to fill the meal with, and threw it in front of Lily with a cold face. Several people turned around and went into the kitchen. Holding the freshly prepared spiritual rice in her hand, Lily walked towards her cave. After this incident, I believe no one would dare to embarrass her when it comes to eating like this in the future. I just thought that a child of several years old like the original owner had to find a way to eat by himself. It's no wonder that she ended up developing such an unstable character, that she fell in love with Luo Chen but was speechless. When she returned to the cave, Lily filled her stomach first, and the aroma of the medicine could already be heard in the stone chamber. When she just left, the elixir was just about to take shape. Unexpectedly, in just a moment, it seemed that the elixir was ready to be released. She quickly entered the stone room. The aroma of the medicine inside was even stronger. The alchemy fire was burning vigorously at this time. There were sounds from the cauldron and fine smoke emitted from the furnace lid. The aroma of the medicine came from it. She cleaned her hands and opened the lid, and a dozen round pills were swirling inside. The surface of these pills was covered with silver light patterns. Looking chic and cute, Lily took out the elixirs. She didn't know why these elixirs had such changes. She thought about it and threw in the remaining medicinal ingredients. This time, Lily temporarily stopped her training in order to find out the reason for the mutation of the elixir. To her surprise, the speed of refining the elixir this time was not faster than the last time. Instead, it took 10 days to refine it. The elixir's body does not have the same silver light pattern as before, nor does it have the aura of the elixir like before. Although there are some effects. But it is only slightly better than the ordinary concentrating pill, which can replenish a small amount of mana. I have tried the silver-striped concentrating pill Lily, and it seems that monks in the later stages of foundation building can benefit from such pills. Lily began to think carefully about the differences between the two furnaces of elixirs she practiced. Logically speaking, the materials are all the same. She didn't use any good materials for the first batch of concentration pill. They were just ordinary medicinal materials of no age, just like a cauldron. At that time, she didn't even keep an eye on the furnace in order to practice her martial arts. Thinking of practicing Qigong, Lily suddenly thought of whether it was because of her own practicing that the changes in these elixirs were caused. When she was refining the silver-marked elixir that came out of the first batch, she did not guard it specially. Instead, she kept focusing on practicing. When she was refining the second batch of elixir, she kept guarding it. She didn't dare to blink, but she didn't expect that she could only refine ordinary elixirs with such seriousness. The first time she practiced the exercises, she used the star training technique, which introduced a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth into her body. However, due to Lily's body itself, it was because of the 5 spiritual roots that she couldn't lock the spiritual energy at all in the beginning. When a large amount of spiritual energy gathered, her body couldn't lock it, and almost all the rest of the spiritual energy ran away. At that time, the elixir furnace was nearby. If the spiritual energy attracted by her but that she could not absorb got into these elixirs, then it is possible that these concentration pills absorbed a large amount of spiritual energy, thus causing this. First, this is why one batch of concentrating pills has far more spiritual energy than the second batch of concentrating pills, and its effect is doubled. It's just that all this is Lily's conjecture. Whether it is true or not, she needs to try again. If her idea is right, the spiritual power induced by her body refining technique is really useful for refining alchemy. If she can make a higher with a high-level elixir, even if Le Behi's body has the most useless 5 spiritual roots, it can quickly increase its strength in a very short period of time. There are not many uses for the herbs in the cave. If you want to experiment again, you have to go out and collect them again. After putting the condensing pill on her body, Lily carried the basket on her back and went out. Almost all the safer places in the medicine mountains around the sword sect were collected by the disciples of the section. Medicinal pills such as condensing pill, although the raw materials are ordinary, if they are collected and handed over to the sect, they can be exchanged for certain contributions, and these contributions can be exchanged for some other things such as spiritual stones and charms. Therefore, there are many disciples around who collect herbs in exchange for contributions, which is more dangerous. Lily didn't dare to go there. There is a medicine garden in the sect that can collect these things, but the original owner does not have any contribution from the section, even though she knows that the medicine garden in the sect has the raw materials for growing the herbal pills. She cannot go and collect them. After thinking about it, Lily knows that there are some. It was risky, but she decided to go to Lingwu Mountain again. It was within the scope of Laiyan Temple and the territory was vast. As long as she was careful not to be discovered by people from Laiyan Temple, it would be much easier for her to collect materials. This is what Le Behi does in the plot. The sword sect's territory is not large. In order to collect some rare materials to make elixirs for Luo Chen, she often sneaks into the Lingwu Mountain area. There are several roads that she is almost familiar with. Usually no one dares to go there. There are many rare medicinal materials, some of which are old. Le Behi is lucky and has never been caught, but the really good medicinal materials are in Lingwu Mountain, and she will not dare to go there again. So later on she had to do tasks for her master in exchange for materials, which slowed down her progress, wasting a lot of time, and finally her own cultivation also stagnated. Lily decided to do it only this time. Now Lily has reached the middle stage of chi refining. She has a dozen of the best concentration pills in her hand. With these pills, it is not difficult for her to reach the late stage of chi refining. As long as she reaches the foundation building stage. Once Xiaogu no longer has to worry about food and drink, she can focus more on her cultivation. Then she can also make contributions to the sect while exchanging medicinal materials. She is not ready to do things for Luo Chen like the original owner. By then, the elixir I have refined will surely be enough for me to practice alone, so I won't have to risk going into the mountains here to collect medicine. Thinking of this, Lily slipped into the range of Lingwu Mountain while no one was paying attention. The medicinal materials in the mountains here are indeed much richer than those in Jianzhong's territory. Lily did not dare to go too deep and just wandered around Lingwu Mountain. But even so, she still collected a lot of them in a long time. When the medicinal materials were about to leave, a voice above their head suddenly rang. "Why is it you again?" Lily looked up and saw a grey shadow passing over her head and falling directly in front of her. It was the same young boy wearing grey robes from last time. He was frowning and staring at Lily. His eyes fell on the backpack on Lily's back. His fair and delicate face showed an old-fashioned and serious expression. "This is the scope of Lingwu Mountain. I told you that except for people from Laiyan Temple, no one can appear here. They will be regarded as spies of the demon section." After he finished speaking, he clasped his hands together. "God has the virtue of a good life. I sent you out last time, why do you want to come again?" If she had met other senior brothers, Lily would have been transcended by others. I don't know what my fate is with this young boy. I entered the mission twice and met him both times when I entered Lingua Mountain. Laiyan Temple is the most famous and upright sect in the Xinglan Sea, with millions of descendants. In this vast land of sects, the chance of meeting anyone is very small, let alone in this large mountain top. She met this person twice in a row, and each time he found her collecting medicinal materials in Lingua Mountain, which made Lily feel a little depressed. She was deeply afraid that the young man would ask her to keep the medicinal materials. Although he didn't mention that last time, there was no guarantee that he wouldn't mention it this time. The young man looked young. Lily thought about it and gritted her teeth, but she felt a little worried in her heart. Got an idea. She took out the small jade bottle she carried with her from her waist, poured 2 concentration pills out of it, and handed them to the young man. You saved my life last time, but I haven't asked your name yet. I've always been grateful, but I don't know how to repay you. I have 2 pills here for you. Children will like these beautiful looking things. Although these 2 elixirs are not the silver-streaked concentration elixirs made by Lily, they are still very good looking after being made by her hands. I originally thought that they could be easily used by children. She was so happy that she didn't know that the young boy just looked at her expressionlessly, without even moving his eyebrows. This is not a place where you should stay for a long time. Doesn't your sect care about you? To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 844. Although this boy was young, he spoke like an adult. Seeing his calm and serious expression, Lily smiled. I know that I won't be able to come here anymore. It's just that I was saved by my senior brother last time and sent me back, so I want to use this pill to repay my senior brother. The condensing pill is a low-grade pill, and in the world of immortality, it is. Although the lowest elixirs are not as good as those top-grade concentrating pills with silver patterns, the elixirs refined by Lily are more effective than ordinary concentrating pills. They can supplement a small amount of spiritual power for people in the foundation building stage. Normally, she might think this thing was of no use, but at a critical moment, this bit of spiritual power might be able to save someone's life. She took out these 2 pills, firstly hoping that the young boy could let her go and not harvest her. Taking back the good medicinal materials, on the one hand, I remember the reason why he saved her last time, and I really want to thank him. Seeing that the young boy had a cold face and said nothing, Lily stepped forward, reached out to hold his palm, and wanted to put the elixir into his palm. The little boy didn't expect that she would make a move as she spoke. He was unprepared for a moment and was pulled by her. The moment their hands touched, a strange and weird feeling came from the palms of their hands. Standing up, Lily was stunned. The little boy looked cold, but there was a bit of confusion in his eyes. The strange and familiar feeling was something neither of them could explain clearly. Lily subconsciously wanted to pull her hand back. But he instinctively clenched his hand, and just in time he grabbed Lily's hand holding the elixir in his palm. There seemed to be an aura about him that made Lily feel very friendly, and she couldn't help but want to get closer. When Lily reacted, she was about to struggle. The young boy had taken the initiative to let go of his hands, clasped his palms together, and his face returned to his expressionless look. I'm sorry, this young boy is not very old, and there is even some baby fat on his fair and tender face. However, his behavior was a bit old-fashioned. When he said this, he even took 2 steps back. We are destined to meet each other, and we will not be rewarded for our efforts. I received 2 pills from my junior sister today. I will give them to you in 5 days. Wait for me when you leave Lingua Mountain. You can't come here again, it's very dangerous. After saying this, he nodded to Lily. I'll take you out of the mountain. After saying that, the young man stretched out his hand. When Lily heard that he was about to send her out of the mountain, she felt relieved and saw that he stretched out his hand as if to give her a hand. Remembering the feeling when she just touched his fingertips, Lily hesitated for a moment, but still stretched out her hand, and he grabbed it. For some reason, that strange familiar feeling came again, as if she didn't want to hold it anymore. Generally loose. Lily had never felt like this in so many missions. Not only was there no rejection at all, but when she came back to her senses, she realized that she had held the young man's hand behind her back, as if she was afraid that he would get rid of him. This was really it's so strange. If she had known that this was the territory of Lingua Mountain, Lily did not dare to go too deep when she entered the mountain. She only picked some low-level medicinal materials needed to refine the condensing pill from the surrounding edges. She could not walk a few steps now. Then we left the mountain. That young man was also weird. Once he saw Lily stepping out of Lingua Mountain, he turned around and left before Lily had time to apologize to him. The others had disappeared into the trees and disappeared. When she returned to her cave, this time Lily was ready to test whether her previous guess about the best concentration pill was true. Most of the medicinal materials she collected in Lingua Mountain this time were not wasted like last time. This time the medicinal materials were probably enough for her to refine 4 batches of elixirs. Lily did not want to interrupt the elixir refining just to fill her stomach. Once her inference is correct, if the ultimate concentration pill is really formed because of her body refining skills, as long as she completes these 4 furnaces and swallows them all, she can rush to the refining within 2 months. In the later stages of qi refining, one can even reach the stage of perfect qi refining. Therefore, she planned to go to Tianxiang Palace to find someone to ask for a remote valley pill. This remote valley pill was not a precious thing. In the world of immortality, it was even more valuable than the condensing pill. However, it was a second-grade pill. If Lily has the materials, it is not impossible to refine it, but the difficulty is that she does not have the materials. After taking the Zyugudan, it can last for about a month. After swallowing it, it can make the monks in the qi refining period within a month. She will not feel hungry. When Lily came to Tianxiang Palace, the monk guarding the temple obviously recognized her, but deliberately pretended not to recognize her. When Lily asked to receive a remote valley pill, she stopped her. In the palace. Junior sister, in order to obtain the remote valley pill, we need 2 contributions from our section. You have to bring your jade token so that our senior brother can give you the elixir. Otherwise, if the elders blame you, no one will be able to bear the responsibility. The guard of the palace. He was a thin middle-aged man in his 30s, with a beard and a green robe. He had a sneer on his face and stared at Lily condescendingly. Junior sister also came out of Tianxiang Palace in the past, so she should know the rules in the palace. You only take the elixir after you have made a contribution. This is what the former master of Tianxiang Palace told you, junior sister. You won't forget it, right? The original owner is less than 7 years old. He is only a monk in the early stage of qi refining. At most, he is slightly stronger than ordinary mortals. He doesn't know how to improve his cultivation every day, and how can he have the opportunity to do any master tasks? There is no contribution at all. This middle-aged man has just pretended to turn over the jade cards for half a day, and he should be very clear in his heart. He deliberately said such words now, clearly because he wanted to embarrass a child. Lily sneered, not like the original owner who would retreat when someone said this, but calmly sat cross-legged in front of the middle-aged man. Senior brother also knows that I used to be from Tianxiang Palace. If I can't get the remote valley pill, forget it. I remember that the inner disciples in the sect will receive 2 low-grade spiritual stones every year, as well as the concentration pill. I am also an inner disciple. I didn't receive any of these materials in the past few years. Why don't you, Senior brother, fill it in for me. In the past, Li Behi was the daughter of the master of Tianxiang Hall, and her father was one of the elders in the sect, so she never lacked spiritual stone pills. Naturally he will not receive these things. After several years of accumulation, these materials may be nothing to other inner disciples, but now since the middle-aged man wants to embarrass Lily, Lily naturally brings it up. And I am the direct disciple of the sect master. Logically speaking, I should be able to receive materials every year, but I have never received them in the past 2 years. Senior brother, can you give them all to me together? Then I will use a low-grade spiritual stone. Exchange a few uncanny valley pills with your senior brother. Should this be in compliance with the sect's regulations? Lily asked, and when the middle-aged man heard what she said, his face suddenly turned ugly. Senior brother, I have to repay the sect leader for this matter. Junior sister, please go back and wait for the news. If there is any news, senior brother will inform you. He waved his hand impatiently, and the original smile on Lily's face faded. His brows furrowed. These are my things, why should I repay the master? The middle-aged man guarding the temple in front of him is at most in the late stage of chi refining, and he seems to be quite old. To be able to enter the inner temple with such a cultivation level, he should be a person with a background like Li Behi. But at this age, the chances of entering the foundation building stage again in this life are smaller, so he was sent to guard the palace. Such a small person, even the master of Tianxiang Palace, may not be able to see him. At this time, he dared to say that he would ask the sect leader before answering her. He clearly wanted to send her back first. If Lily leaves now, there may be no news about her. The original owner's parents died for the sword sect after all. It seems that the original owner's things were either withheld by others, or the sword sect leader accepted her as his disciple in name, but in fact he didn't really mark her as the sect leader's disciple. Otherwise, with this status, a certain amount of materials will be delivered to her every year. Even if these people are greedy, they will never dare to have ideas for these things. The original owner used to be introverted and didn't like to talk. After becoming the master of the sect, she had a master and disciple. She didn't want to bother the sect leader anymore because of her status, so she didn't even ask about the information that the sect leader's disciples should have every year, and she didn't even know that the sect master might not really accept her as his disciple. Lily's heart felt cold. When the middle-aged man heard Lily's words, he stood up immediately. Your stuff? Do you think I care about these little things? That's not certain. Otherwise, why would senior brother refuse to give it to me? As soon as he stood, Lily also stood up. There was a scowl on the middle-aged man's face, and he pointed at Lily and said, I said so. No, go back and wait for the news. If you don't see the sect leader's order, you can't release the pill. Everything must be done according to the rules. Lily was about to speak when magic weapons flew from far to near outside the palace. Before she could turn her head to look, a somewhat displeased and cold male voice rang out. How is it appropriate to make such a noise? The middle-aged monk who had looked fierce in front of her just now hurriedly knelt down. He no longer looked as arrogant as before, and said respectfully, Uncle Luo Chen is here. When she heard Luo Chen's name, Lily turned her head and saw a young man wearing white clothes and with long black hair pulled up at the door of the palace. The handsome but cold-looking young man put back the flying magic weapon he was stepping on. He put it in his sleeve and looked over, but his eyes did not fall on the middle-aged monk. When he saw Lily, his eyes showed a bit of surprise, and then he asked, Why are you here? At this moment, Luo Chen is still very young, and he is not yet the golden elixir stage monk. His appearance is a bit more immature than the original owner remembered. At this moment, he is still a monk who has just entered the foundation building stage, but the frosty look on his face was exactly the same as before. While his white clothes made him look spotless, it also made him look cold and inhumane. To be continued. Cannon fodder strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 845. Senior brother Lily bowed respectfully. Luo Chen had already entered the foundation building stage. In terms of seniority, in terms of cultivation, she should be like the middle-aged man and call him Master Uncle. However, because the two of them are the same, he was the disciple of the sect master, so when she called him like this, Luo Chen just glanced at her, nodded, and looked at the middle-aged man. He didn't ask questions, but the middle-aged man knew what he meant. Although they were both disciples of the sect master, one was a direct disciple who was highly favored by the sect master, while Lily was just a registered disciple of the sect master. In the past, the welfare of Li Bei's inner disciples was indeed it was this middle-aged man who got it, but he did not have the information about the identity of Lily sect master's disciple. Now Luo Chen came and seemed to want to ask him what happened just now. He did not dare to deal with Luo Chen like he did with Lily. Chen dealt with it and told the story honestly. Luo Chen's brows suddenly wrinkled. "What are you doing with the remote valley pill?" Luo Chen didn't say much, so he asked now. Lily's answer immediately made a look of impatience appear in his eyes. After a while, the look of frost in his eyes became stronger. "There is no use in taking too much remote valley pill. The long-term strategy is to improve your cultivation level to the foundation building stage as soon as possible. You don't have to think about those heretical skills." It is rare for him to say such a long string of words. If Li Bei had listened before, when he lectures her like this, she will definitely think that he is so strict for her own good. For a child who has lost her parents at this age, sometimes even if someone teaches her a lesson or two, she feels happy, and she will naturally treat Luo Chen. The words were regarded as imperial edicts, but when Lily heard Luo Chen say this, she couldn't help but laugh. "Senior brother taught you that?" Luo Chen said it easily. If she can advance to the foundation building stage, she certainly knows that after building the foundation, the body is far more convenient than taking the remote valley pill. It is also a long-term strategy, but the question is how can she advance to the foundation building stage? It was all due to the efforts of the original owner alone. There were no medicinal materials or the guidance of a master, and the original owner's capital was not high. No wonder the original owner worked hard until the end, and only entered the foundation building stage after several decades. Became one of the laughingstocks within the sect. "But senior brother, these things are mine originally. I just want to get them back." As soon as Lily said these words, the corners of Luo Chen's mouth tightened. He usually has a cold temperament and it is difficult to say a word. This now I had finished saying it for her sake, but she didn't necessarily appreciate it. Luo Chen was unhappy and didn't want to talk nonsense to Lily anymore. He originally wanted to give her a few words because she had no father or mother, but rotten wood could not be carved. He looked at the middle-aged man and said. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and felt extremely depressed. In front of Luo Chen, he still handed over the things he had been having an affair with for the past 2 years. In the end, Lily took out a low-grade spirit stone and exchanged it with the middle-aged man for a few remote valley pills, achieving her goal. She was about to say thank you to Luo Chen, and fulfilled the original owner's wish to thank her senior brother. But Luo Chen had already wasted a long time on her, and he was impatient. He waited for her to finish her work and walked away. No trace. This time I couldn't thank him enough. Lily faced the middle-aged man's cannibalistic gaze and returned to her cave with her things. After swallowing a remote valley pill, Lily started the furnace and refined the pill again. During the process of refining the pill, she also practiced physical training. When the spiritual power was introduced into the stone chamber by her, this time she even consciously introduced some spiritual power into the alchemy furnace. The aroma of the medicine emanating from the alchemy furnace is far stronger than before, and the elixir is made earlier than before. The previous furnace of elixir took 5 days, but this furnace of elixir took shape in only 4 days. The body of the concentrating pill that came out not only had lines this time, but those light patterns were also faintly glowing with gold. Lily's previous guess was correct. The spiritual energy induced by the physical training technique was indeed useful for refining the pill. The effectiveness of this furnace of concentrating pill has been far beyond the ordinary concentration pill. Lily took one, which contained a lot of spiritual energy. After swallowing this pill, not only the spiritual energy overflowed throughout her body, but it could also counteract the pain caused by half a set of physical training techniques she usually did. The spiritual power is effective. After directing these spiritual powers to circulate in her body and running the Tao Te Ching to fully absorb the medicinal properties of this concentration pill, she had reached the stage of perfection in the middle stage of Qi refining, and the 5 days she had made an appointment with the young boy that day had also arrived. The young boy had helped Lily before. He made an appointment to meet in 5 days. Lily was going to see him, and there was something about him that made Lily feel very familiar, but Lily was not the person on the real mission. Logically speaking, she should have never seen that young boy before, and she didn't know where the familiarity came from. Thinking of the scene when she touched his hand that day, Lily recalled the plot in her mind again, but still I didn't come up with any useful clues. At the agreed place, when Lily arrived, the young boy was already sitting cross-legged in the grass. His little gray figure was blocked by the grass, with his hands clasped together, and his expression was quiet and a little deserted. When Lily came, he did not stand up. Still meditating with his eyes closed, he didn't open his eyes until Lily squatted next to him for a while, took out a gray bag from his arms, and handed it to Lily. Junior sister is making rapid progress. The bag was not eye-catching, but when Lily touched it, the bag was exuding spiritual power. The Kinkan bag, Lily was a little surprised. The Kinkan bag is a commonly used thing in the world of cultivating immortals. Generally, monks can put some medicines and materials in it and carry it with them. It is very convenient. As long as the essence and blood are dripped into it and the master is recognized, she will not be afraid of falling unless the master dies. Lily did not expect that this young boy would give herself such a thing. The Kinkan bag is not expensive for ordinary monks, but for ordinary monks in the Qi refining stage, it is still a very luxury. Items. I have only met this young boy twice, and received help from him once. I gave him 2 pills last time, thinking I was repaying my kindness. I didn't expect that this time the young boy gave me such a thing right away. Lily, he hesitated and didn't take it. It is yours if you shed blood. When the little boy said this, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Lily's hand. When Lily was caught by him, she couldn't be wary of him at all. The little boy's fingertips he lightly made a cross on Lily's middle finger. His finger seemed to have drawn it randomly, but the spiritual power pierced the skin of Lily's finger. A cross-shaped wound first opened, and then blood gushed out, dripping. On the Kinkan bag, it was quickly absorbed into it. Before Lily could refuse, she was attracted by the contents of the Kinkan bag. The Kinkan bag has now recognized her as its master. Through her mental power, she can see the contents inside. There are many medicinal materials, many small jade bottles, several pieces of clothing, jewelry, and dozens of low-grade spiritual stones. She did not expect that the young man would give her these things. Although the pills Lily sent that day were much better looking than the ordinary concentration pills, 1 Kinkan bag was enough to offset 2 pills, not to mention the materials inside. Whenever someone is inexplicably too good to her, Lily always feels that they are treating her like a fat sheep, with the intention of fattening her up and then eating her. Although she has an inexplicable affinity with this little boy, but at this moment Lily feels that after receiving such a big gift and being forced to do so, I became a little wary. Senior brother gave it to me? Why? She asked, and the young boy responded without raising his head. His eyelids were lowered, and his expression seemed a little calm. You will understand later. When he spoke, he used his spiritual power to control Lily. The wound he had just made on the middle finger was sealed, and the wound quickly stopped bleeding. The little boy held her hand in his palm, and after a while he said, "What's your junior sister's name?" Without even knowing his name, he gave himself a bunch of things that were absolutely valuable to a monk in the chi refining stage. Lily's eyebrows skipped a beat, and she reported the name of the original owner, and finally asked, "Senior brother saved my life. I still don't know how to call him." When she sent the elixir last time, she asked the young boy's name, but he didn't say it at that time. When Lily asked again this time, the young boy didn't. Avoiding this question again, "My name is Zone Yan." When she heard the name, Lily pursed her lips tightly. The original owner knew about Zone Yan. Zone Yan was the only direct disciple of Master Nyan, the famous master of the Xinglan Sea in Laiyan Temple and the only second supreme elder of the divine transformation stage in the entire continent. His name was unknown at first. Obviously, but in a few decades, he will be the first person to step into nascent soul at the age of less than 100 years old. He is the most promising person in Laiyan Temple to take over the post of abbot of Laiyan Temple, and he is also the one who has the best chance of taking over the post of abbot of Laiyan Temple for hundreds of years. In the subsequent battle between good and evil, he was the youngest and most decent leader. At that time, Zone Yan was truly a proud man of heaven. The Sword sect was originally just one of the affiliated sects attached to Laiyan Temple. Even the master of the Sword sect might not be able to see Zone Yan. To the original owner, such a person was just a mere disciple. As for the character in the legend, Lily didn't expect that Lily would get to know him by accident because of entering the mission. To be able to appear within the scope of Lingwu Mountain, it is no wonder that he is young, looks different in demeanor, and has already reached the foundation building stage at a young age. If he is Zone Yan, he is the disciple of the monk in the transformation stage. This all makes sense. It is not easy for monks in the foundation building stage to cultivate. This can be seen from the fact that Luo Chen entered the foundation building stage at the age of less than 20 years old and was called a genius. At this time, Zone Yan's reputation is not great. He is still young, and he is not as prosperous as he was after entering Yuanying in the later period. There is no need for a young boy to pretend to be someone else's name, and is he lying? After so many missions, Lily, she had some ability to observe words and expressions, and she could see that the young boy did not just say the name casually to deceive her. His expression was indifferent and a little careless. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 846. Judging from his age and cultivation, this Zone Yan is very likely to be the disciple of Master Nyan. If it is really him, then Lily was wary of him at first, thinking that he took these things to plot against her, and she was filled with suspicion and vigilance have been removed. If he is really that Zone Yan, and his master is a monk who transforms into gods, and he took out these materials to give to himself, the reason may not be as complicated as he thought. Thinking of this, Lily felt he breathed a sigh of relief. "Senior brother, why did you give me so many things?" Zone Yan lowered his head and glanced at Lily. She lowered her head, and her bangs were combed neatly on her head, revealing the little girl's plump and smooth forehead. She squinted her eyes with vigilance, and her cheeks seemed to be white. The red fairy peach, with a layer of tiny fluff on it clearly visible, and the girl's sculpted face always made him want to reach out and touch it. In the past, he only had the sex magic and cultivation in his heart. He was not old enough to see the beauty of female cultivators. What's more, Lily's body was young, and besides being cute, she really couldn't see any beauty, but he was inexplicably, just because he wanted to get close, he took the 2 pills he didn't need after she grabbed his hand. In the past 5 days, he didn't even spend most of his time practicing the secrets of the sect like before, but instead used it to collect the materials she could use for her. Zone Yan silently recited the King's Inju in his heart and calmed down. The hand that was about to reach out to touch her head was retracted, and he put his hands together on his chest. and after a long while, he remembered what Lily had just asked him. Give it if you want. His words were indeed the truest thoughts in his heart. He didn't want Lily to enter Lingua Mountain and meet other people from Laiyan Temple. There was no reason. He just wanted to hide her, collect medicinal materials for her, and feed her as if she were still very young. When he had just been accepted as a disciple by his master, he had raised a rabbit, and he had to hide it as if it were a treasure. The master did not want him to focus on other things, so he concentrated on his cultivation. He is a person with a single heavenly spiritual root. He is the most suitable person to practice the dragon secret technique inherited from Lingua Mountain for many years. It is the master's plan for the future. He could protect the sect after he transcended the tribulation and ascended. He knew this from the day he became a disciple of Nyo Yin. The master didn't like him raising rabbits. He hid the little rabbit in his cave and fed it elixir spring water every day. No one knew that he had raised the rabbit to be extremely fat and refused to show it to anyone for many years. However, the master finally discovered the rabbit and wanted to send the rabbit away. The thought of giving away his precious things others, Zonyan finally cut off the life of that fat rabbit. Seal it well in your cave. From then on, he concentrated on practicing the Kingzinju, which is a secret technique of Laiyan Temple, and became less sentimental and less lustful. After practicing the Kingzinju, he became cold-tempered, with few emotions and 6 desires, and no joy, anger, sorrow, or joy. It was just like what ordinary people call an indifferent heart that can see through the world of mortals. To practice the highest secret technique of Laiyan Temple, one must be cold-hearted and cold-natured. Only by practicing 2 sets of techniques at the same time can one achieve half the result with half the effort. He originally had a mature and steady character. Xiuqing Xianju later became more and more indifferent, and eventually he gradually forgot about the rabbit. It was just a trivial incident when he first entered the world of cultivating immortals. A few years passed. He has practiced the Kingzinju until now, and he doesn't even care about himself. But when he met Lily, it reminded Zonyan of his feelings when he had a pet. It seemed that he had returned to the original feeling of wanting to hide her and give her the ingredients for pills so that no one could see her. When I think of that feeling now, there is always an indescribable satisfaction, even if the rabbit is of no real help to him, but without that rabbit, even if the master praises his talent, people in the sect who knew his identity were respectful to him. As he practiced the Kingzinju, his heart was no longer happy. No matter how fast his strength increased, no matter how much people praised him, he could not find the pure state of mind he had at the beginning. But now when he saw Lily, he remembered that feeling again. But he would not tell Lily this kind of thoughts. He was not very old, but he could vaguely feel that if he told her, she would probably have to hide far away. Zonyan moved his fingers again. Junior sister Lily. If you want anything in the future, you can contact me. I have a jade tablet that seals my spiritual power in the Kinkan bag. I can sense it if I crush it. Lily looked at him with his eyelids lowered as he spoke. He had a fair and handsome face. He was obviously still childish, but his expression was mature. He didn't know what he thought of, and there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He didn't know if it was Lei Yin. Because of the temple magic, the smile on his face showed a somewhat holy feeling, but it made her feel a little creepy. He clasped his hands together, wore a grey gown, and was dressed the same as an ordinary monk in Laiyan Temple. If I hadn't heard his name, I would never have thought that he would be Master Nyan's disciple. Although I suspected that it was a bit weird for Zonyan to be so kind to me, as he was the only direct disciple in the divine transformation stage, my body really had nothing to do with him. Laiyan Temple has a good reputation among the righteous section in the plot. Zonyan is also the leader of the new generation of the righteous section, speaking of which, the Sword Sect is still one of Laiyan Temple's branches. If he really wants to make some plans, he doesn't have to target himself specifically. As long as she finds the Sword Sect master, who is an orphan like the original owner and has no backing force, the sword sect master will definitely give her his hands. In addition, she was also inexplicably close to Zhong Yan. Lily carefully remembered that Zhong Yan had saved her when she first entered the mission. She didn't feel that way at that time. The last time she touched her hands, she found something different, which was really shocking. She was puzzled. Although she was suspicious in her heart, Lily didn't show it at all on her face. She thanked her seriously, and then found a way to chat with Zhong Yan, hoping to take the opportunity to get some reasons from him as to why he gave her the materials. Senior brother appeared in Lingwu Mountain. He should be a disciple of Leiyin Temple, right? She asked. Zhong Yan did not answer this time, but nodded silently after a while. Lily saw that although his attitude was cold, but fortunately, he was still willing to communicate with me. I was thinking about how to turn the topic back to the Kinkan bag without realizing it, and asked again, Senior brother has not been tonsured, does it mean that he has not officially entered Leiyin Temple yet? She originally wanted to say that if Zhong Yan didn't answer this question, she would take the opportunity to ask him about collecting spiritual herbs. Unexpectedly, when she said these words, the expressionless young boy's eyes rolled and he stared intently. Then she looked at it. Who told junior sister that all the Leiyin temples belong to monks? Leiyin Temple was originally a temple, and the disciples inside were all monks. The sword sect was one of the small forces affiliated with Leiyin Temple. Although the original master had little cultivation and did not necessarily have a complete understanding of the general trend of the world, he the original owner still knew this obvious common sense. There is no need for anyone to tell me this. Everyone in the Xinglan Sea area knows that Leiyin Temple is a monk temple, but the group of monks living there are very powerful and are not just ordinary monks who chant sutras and worship Buddha. I know it myself. Lily's scalp felt a little numb when Zhong Yan looked at him. His eyes were so clear that it was almost penetrating. If you look carefully, his eyes were not pure black, but rather dark blue. The look in his eyes was clear and light, as if he had seen it somewhere before. When he was staring at it, that familiar feeling came again, as if he had seen it somewhere before. But when he looked closer, he realized that he was just thinking. It's just too much. In Leiyin Temple, it is voluntary to be ordained. If you worship in Leiyin Temple, you will be tonsured naturally. But if you only worship one of the elders as your disciple, then you will only be counted as half a disciple of Leiyin Temple. Zhong Yan said this when he spoke, his expression was serious and serious. If you don't want to be tonsured, you can marry a dual cultivator. As long as you protect Leiyin Temple from behind and become an honorary elder. He originally just asked him casually if he wanted to be tonsured, but he didn't expect him to be so serious about this issue. Lily originally wanted to ask him about collecting herbal medicine, but seeing Zhong Yan's serious explanation at this time, he even asked him to just worship him. Things related to a certain elder's name were mentioned in a vague way. Lily was speechless by him and could only laugh twice. So that's it. Lily had nothing to say for a while, and Zhong Yan didn't seem like a talkative person, so the scene became a little cold for a while. Zhong Yan didn't say he wanted to leave. Lily stood for a while, and a long-mouthed mosquito the size of a soybean buzzed over and started to lean on Lily. This kind of long-mouthed mosquito is the lowest grade spiritual beast. Each one is about the third or fourth level of cultivation in the chi refining stage, and the leading mosquito is of a slightly higher grade. One of them is not scary, but if it appears in groups, even the monks in the foundation establishment stage will have to avoid it, otherwise they will have to. It cannot suck people's essence and blood dry. When Zhong Yan saw her move, he stretched out his hand. Without any mercy from the monks, he took the long-mouthed mosquito and crushed it into pieces in his palm. When Lily saw this scene, before she had time to apologize to him, something suddenly came to her mind. Her strength is low. She is only at the great perfection stage in the middle stage of chi refining. It will take a certain amount of time to reach the later stage. Her strength is too low now, and the original owner's status in the sect is too underappreciated. If she relies on, she doesn't have any material resources for her practice, so her speed will inevitably be slower. If she wants to get some resources, she must do some sect tasks and exchange contributions for materials. However, if her strength is too low, some tasks may be in danger. At the beginning, she was also planning to cultivate a batch of voodoo worms to increase her self-preservation ability. However, she was busy with elixirs recently and forgot about cultivating voodoo worms. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 847. Judging from the plots received during this mission, it is not something out of the ordinary to raise goo insects. There is even a special beast sect in the world of immortal cultivation in Zingland Sea, and the people in it make a living by raising spiritual beasts. As a means of attack, the spirit beast is raised until its strength reaches the golden elixir or even the nascent soul stage. It will become one with its owner and its power cannot be underestimated. Lily was previously thinking about refining elixirs, but she put aside the matter of finding medicinal materials for goo training. Only then did I think about it when I saw the long-mouthed mosquito. Zonyan kept his gaze on her face. When he saw her seeing the long-mouthed mosquito, she wanted to hide at first, and then narrowed her eyes. He cast a cleaning technique to clean the corpse of the mosquito on her hands, and then asked. Junior sister wants to raise a spiritual beast, he is a little higher than Lily. It can be seen that Lily's strength has reached the middle stage of chi refining. Such a cultivation level is too low. Although she relies on a sect, she needs to. It can be seen from collecting medicinal materials to make elixirs that she is not valued within the section. If her cultivation level is low, she will be easily bullied. If she could have a spiritual beast by her side, she wouldn't be able to defeat him with her own strength. At least with outside help, she wouldn't lose too many people. Zonyan found out what was in Lily's mind, and an idea came to him. Insects are pretty good among spirit beasts. I wonder if I like them. Junior sister, Lily is only in the chi refining period now. If the spirit beast is stronger and has superior intelligence, she may not be able to sign the blood contract, but will be rebelled against by the spirit beast. If it is a reptilian spirit beast, there will be no such concerns. Most insects are not as attractive as beasts in appearance. In the early stage, most insect spirit beasts are weak in strength. She can easily sign the contract successfully. The most important thing is that the appearance of insects is ferocious and terrifying. Female cultivators generally don't like it very much. Even if the blood contract is a spiritual beast, they won't care where the treasure goes. Senior brother is right. Lily didn't expect that he was so observant. She just stared at the long-mouthed mosquito for a moment. When he saw it, she nodded. Zonyan pondered for a long time and asked her to come back tomorrow. At this moment, she didn't want to leave her standing there together. Lily didn't know what she was going to do when Zonyan made an appointment with her. When she went there the next day, Zonyan gave her a spirit animal bag and asked her to drop her blood to recognize it. When she was reading the book, she found that there were 7 or 8 purple bees inside. Zonyan gave her another book on the beast taming section. He seemed to have something wrong this time. After giving the things, he told Lily that if she didn't understand anything, she could crush the jade token and find him, and then left. Lily returned to the cave and dug out these things. After returning yesterday, she had not had time to sort out the contents of the kinkin bag, so she poured out the contents now. Most of the medicinal materials in the bag are used to refine elixirs to increase some mana during the foundation building period. They are not very precious, but are suitable for her next step. Each of those jade bottles contained a foundation building pill and 7 or 8 remote valley pills. Except for the dozens of spiritual stones that were slightly more precious, there wasn't much in the bag. Lily breathed a sigh of relief. At first, I doubted whether Zonyan had any intentions for me, but when I saw that the things were ordinary, my heart relaxed. She turned around and began to read the secret records of the beast taming section. The first half of the secret records contained the rankings of various spirit beasts and insects, as well as the living habits of each major spirit beast and how to raise them. Explain in detail. It was indeed very applicable to Lily at this time. When she turned to the insect category, Lily turned several pages before she saw the purple golden queen bee ranked 39th. This is the kind of bee that Zonyan gave her this time. Purple golden king bees generally live in groups, and an ordinary purple bee is born with only the strength of the late stage of chi refining. But if the person who keeps it can find a way to make the purple bees reproduce and evolve, and the purple bees devour each other and evolve, then every time they reproduce, the number of bees in the colony will increase a lot, and then they will devour each other. When new bees are born, it will be the strength in the early stage of foundation building. After it is swallowed and then reproduced, the newly born bee colony will be the strength in the middle stage of foundation building. And so on, until the real purple gold king bee evolves. The real purple gold king bee can reach the level of Yuan dynasty. He has cultivated in the infant stage and can summon the same kind, and his strength can surpass the same level of spiritual beasts. The reason why it is ranked so low in the secret records of spiritual beasts is because although the purple gold king bee is recorded in the secret records, there are beekeepers in the beast taming sect in the Xinglan Sea area, but bee colonies can actually reproduce and come into estrus. The time is extremely long. At first, it reproduces once every few decades, and then the time becomes longer and longer. A monk can wait until the bees evolve and reproduce 3 times at most. No matter how long the life of the monk is, they will no longer be able to wait. The purple gold king bee has once a blood contract is signed, the temperament cannot be transferred. Once signed, it cannot be passed on to others like other spiritual beasts. Once the owner is dead, the bee swarm will also die. A purple bee initially has the strength of the late stage of chi refining. It has evolved 3 times at most, which is in the late building stage. There are only about 20 of them in number. It has an instant kill effect on low-level enemies, but it has no effect on monks above the nascent soul stage. Coupled with the fact that it is not easy to go crazy, reproduce and devour, although the bee colony is extremely powerful if it is raised until the purple golden queen bee appears later, the purple golden queen bee is just a legend. If you want to raise such a thing, you must use a large number of top-quality elixirs to catalyze it. Many if a monk really has the best elixir, but he doesn't even have enough to take it, how can he be willing to give it to the spirit beast? Therefore, the purple bee is destined to be a useless thing. Even if it is recorded in the secret record that in the later stage, if it has a swarm of bees, it can block 100 enemies. However, because of its certain characteristics and the fact that it is not easy to find in the Xinglan Sea, its ranking is still very low. However, there is a special note at the end of the secret record. Zigbee honey can be used for beauty, and can increase spiritual power. It is also a good material for medicine. Unfortunately, because there are not many Zigbee bees, the speed of producing honey ointment is not fast, so the price is quite expensive. In recent years, only those who control beasts will occasionally sell some. Purple gold king bees are very rare. I don't know where Zonyan found such a few to give to him. Lily originally wanted to refine Gu, but when she saw these bees, she felt a little moved in her heart. These purple bees are all in the late stage of chi refining. They are now slightly higher than me. I don't know if my Gu refining technique is useful in raising these bees. If it is useful, it can stimulate them to multiply and devour them. So although she has never tried beekeeping before, it's not like she can't try it once. Lily also looked at the characteristics of the purple golden king bee. This thing is poisonous. The poison can be numb in the early stage, but it will be fatal in the later stage. Unless honey of the same level is used as the antidote, once you are poisoned by the purple bee venom, you will suffer to death. The bee swarm seems to be really useful to her at the moment. Lily hangs the spirit beast bag on her body and decides to wait until her chi refining period before coming to the blood contract with these purple bees. She is not strong at the moment and is very likely to be in the process of signing the contract. If you are not careful, not only will you fail to succeed, but you may be attacked by the purple bee. In the next few days, Lily swallowed the Quiet Valley pill and no longer had to worry about her stomach problems. During this period, she was originally planning to swallow the top quality concentrating pills she had made and rush into the later stage of chi refining. But now that there were bees, these medicines had to be taken by bees. Lily could only use the body refining technique to introduce spiritual energy into her body. After 3 months, she successfully entered the late stage of chi refining. After the late stage of chi refining, Lily did not sign the contract with Feng right away. Instead, she spent half a year to maintain her magic power at the state of great perfection in the late stage of chi refining before she started to swallow the foundation establishment pill and prepare for the impact. Foundation building period. Although there is only one layer of cultivation between the foundation building stage and the chi refining stage, the more you practice, the more you realize that even if it is just a simple progress, after the body is tempered, the more spiritual energy can be left. Although Lily's physique is much better than the original owner's 5 spiritual roots due to the practice of body refining, the original owner's qualifications have always affected her to some extent. I don't know if it is because she is practicing the Tao Te Ching. Because of this, her training speed was not as fast as in the previous mission world, but her progress was slightly slower. The first time I rushed to the foundation building stage, I failed. When the spiritual energy surged up, it seemed to be stuck in the mouth of a bottle and could not be flushed out. In the end, I returned without success. Faced with this situation, Lily just practiced her physical training again. After recovering the spiritual power in her body, she prepared to swallow the foundation establishment pill and try again. She had expected such a result early on, so she did not panic or be impatient when entering the foundation building stage. The most taboo thing in practice is to have a distracted mind. Lily has a calm personality, and even after failing 3 times in a row, she did not become impatient. And when she was trying to attack the foundation period, more than a year passed in a blink of an eye. Fortunately, she had the Remote Valley pill. During this year, she didn't have to interrupt her practice for food. A few pills to attack the foundation period. The pill has been taken long ago, and it can be seen that the physical qualifications of the original owner are indeed very poor. In the remaining time, it is all up to Lily to accumulate spiritual power to attack the foundation period. She does not know how many times she has tried, but the originally tight the barrier that imprisoned Lily's mana was diluted weaker and weaker as Lily hit the foundation building stage again and again, until she finally rushed into the foundation building stage. Lily tried this simple action thousands of times for more than a year. When she finally succeeded, Lily couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She always performed the same actions over and over again. Fortunately, she was very patient, otherwise she would have been unable to endure it any longer. A large amount of wasted spiritual energy that her body could not store in the past filled her body. Lily carefully guided the spiritual energy and began to follow the instructions of the Tao Te Ching. The operation mode started to move. It took her 2 months to consolidate her cultivation in the early stage of foundation building. Then she took out the spirit beast bag that Zonyan had given her. Through her own mental power, she could I saw 7 bees sleeping peacefully in the bag. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 848. Lily took out the secret record of controlling the beast, followed the method above to tame the spirit beast, bit her middle finger, first drew a talisman on the spirit beast bag, and then dropped the blood into the bag. The originally sleeping bee the group was stimulated by the smell of blood, and all of a sudden they all flapped their wings and woke up. Now that Lily has reached the foundation building stage, the monk's blood contains a lot of spiritual power. Fenrir smelled the smell of blood and rushed to eat. She dripped 3 or 4 drops of blood essence in a row until she felt that most of the spiritual power in her body was quickly drained. Only then did he use magic power to seal the wound on his fingertip. She followed the instructions in the secret record and activated her spiritual power. Sure enough, she found that she could vaguely feel several close feelings in her mind. She faced these spiritual powers and issued instructions to calm them down. A few bees in the spirit beast bag that had been buzzing quickly became quiet. This time, because her strength was 1 level higher than that of the purple gold king bee, she easily subdued the purple bees without any resistance from the swarm. I threw a few top-quality concentration pills in. These concentration pills were the best tonic for the bee swarm at this time, and they were quickly eaten by 7 purple bees. In the following time, Lily, apart from her daily practice, spent the rest of her time throwing the concentration pills into the spirit beast bag. As soon as the dozen or so silver-patterned pills were thrown away, she began to put the golden pills with more spiritual energy into them. Throwing the grained elixir in, and when the last golden grained elixir was thrown away, Lily was still thinking about refining some more pills, but the bee swarm, which had always been very active, suddenly began to fall into a deep sleep. The secret book of beast taming says that bee swarms will almost never fall into deep sleep except when they advance. Purple bees are different from ordinary bees. This kind of purple golden king bee almost only rests in the spirit beast bag. The honey production depends on the amount of spiritual energy they absorb, instead of ordinary bees mainly collecting nectar. During this period of time, Lily had been feeding the spirit pills from time to time, and the bee swarm absorbed enough advanced spiritual energy and naturally fell asleep. Unexpectedly, the bee swarm began to advance so quickly. In addition to the large amount of top-grade spiritual pills she usually feeds, Lily guesses that it must be related to the large amount of spiritual power she draws from her star training. While breathing a sigh of relief, she took out some of the medicinal materials Zonyan gave her that day and prepared to refine another batch of elixirs suitable for monks in the foundation building stage. When the bee swarm wakes up, they will need a lot of spiritual medicine. When she was trying to consolidate her strength, she made the elixir and fed it to these bees. It was already a year later when all these medicinal materials were refined into elixirs suitable for taking during the foundation building period to enhance mana. As Lily's strength increased during this year, the power of physical training was much greater than when he first started practicing, and it attracted more spiritual power. Therefore, almost most of the elixirs produced were gold. The elixir of the pattern was mixed with a small amount of the elixir of the silver pattern, and during this year, her strength began to consolidate at the peak of the second level in the early stage of foundation building. Practice comes later. It is almost becoming more and more difficult. For Lily, the fear of being unstable due to insufficient mental experience among cultivators who have reached a certain level of strength will never happen to her. Therefore, she has hardly encountered any problems with inner demons during her cultivation. Therefore, progress in the later stages is slow purely because the original owner has 5 spiritual roots. In addition, for monks other than spiritual beasts, the reason why the foundation building period is called the most important step in spiritual practice is because of the foundation building period. It is the only period among human monks that their practice is divided into 10 levels. Once you have passed the foundation building period, after entering the golden elixir stage, it is then that you have the capital to truly gain a foothold in the world of immortality. After collecting the last batch of elixirs, she didn't have many jade vases to hold elixirs. If she wanted to make elixirs again in the future, the medicine bottles needed to be repurchased, counting from the time she retreated. It has been nearly 3 years since she left the cave. When Lily packed up and prepared to leave, the bees in the spirit beast bag that had been silent for more than a year began to become a little restless. A few days ago, the purple bees felt like they were about to wake up. Because of the blood contract, Lily could vaguely feel the movement among these purple bees. Now she felt that those originally quiet mental powers were exuding a thirst for spiritual power. Feeling like this, she immediately bit her finger and dripped a few drops of blood into it. The spirit beast bag was suddenly filled with people, and she threw a few freshly baked pills into it. After a while, they were the swarm of purple bees emptied their food, and the happy feeling of the purple bees came from the spiritual sea. Lily thought for a while, and patted the spirit beast bag. The mouth of the bag was opened, and a swarm of purple bees flew out, buzzing and flapping their wings. Compared with 3 years ago, the originally half-yellow and half-purple tails of these purple wasps have now turned purple, and they are much more ferocious than before. In the past, each one was about the size of a soybean, but now it is about the same size as a peanut, and each spiritual bee has reached the cultivation level at the early stage of construction. I wonder if the pills given by Lily were full of spirituality. There are 5 more purple bees in number. The number of purple bees evolves and reproduces from small to large. Depending on the aura, Lily has a total of 7 purple wasps this time. 5 more after one evolution is considered very powerful. She stretched out her hand, and more than a dozen purple bees stopped in her palm. With a wave of Lily's hand, the spirit bees flew towards the stone chamber, sputtering out a large amount of venom from their tails, almost melting half of the restricted stone chamber walls. Clean. With these spiritual bees in hand, Lily could hardly find any opponents during the construction period. Just as she was about to summon the bees back, a voice rang in her mind. Lily, come out. When Lily heard the voice, she was stunned for a moment. She waved her hand, and a swarm of purple bees all got into the spirit beast bag with a buzzing sound. The voice came from Zone Yan. I don't know. How could he have the ability to directly contact him through spiritual power? When Lily tried to find him, there was no sound in her mind. In the world of immortality, there is also the ability to transmit sounds across thousands of miles, and there are various methods and secrets. Behi suppressed the doubts in his heart, left the cave, and ran to Linguia Mountain where he met Zone Yan. She is much stronger now, so it stands to reason it is said that he can learn the art of controlling the sword and use his spiritual power to control the sword and fly. However, because Le Behi is poor, he has almost no valuable things at hand. Therefore, although Lily's strength has increased now, she still almost relies on her own legs when going out. But she arrived at Linguia Mountain much faster than before. When she arrived at the place where she had originally arranged to meet Zone Yan was already waiting there. This Linguia Mountain has always prohibited people except Laiyan Temple from entering, so there was no one else on the mountain top where the two met. After not seeing each other for more than 3 years, Zone Yan closed his eyes tightly and sat in the grass, with his dark hair and ebony rolled up his arms. Although he was only wearing an ordinary grey robe, he had a handsome face like a peach and apricot, and his cheeks seemed to be flowing with brilliance. The magic techniques practiced by the monks of Laiyan Temple would give people a sense of solemnity and holiness. A little cinnabar mole seemed to be the finishing touch, making his appearance even more elegant and clean. The grey cloth on his body not only did not make his color darker, but instead brought out the elegance of a landscape painting. His strength was higher than when Lily saw him 3 years ago, and his spiritual energy seemed to be glued to his side. More than 3 years ago, Lily could barely tell that Zone Yan had reached the foundation building stage, but more than 3 years later, this at the moment, she couldn't see how far Zone Yan had reached now. Either he is already a level higher than Lily, or he has practiced some kind of secret technique to cover up his true cultivation level. His face had lost the slight baby fat fleshiness when we saw it a few years ago. It was like a jade embryo that had been carefully carved. It looked clear and delicate. When Lily came over, he opened his eyes, and he looked like a jade man. The ordinary face came alive in an instant, and the eyes were as clear as green ink crystals. They were too clean and revealed a bit of coldness that people dare not blaspheme. "Senior brother, you seem to have lost weight." Lily originally wanted to ask him how he could find her through direct voice transmission, but she didn't expect that when she opened her mouth, she said such a sentence. Zonyan paused and ignored her words. Lily herself felt her scalp numb after she finished speaking. Zonyan was still a young boy when he met her 3 years ago, but now his face has lost the babyish look of a young boy. Fat and delicate, with a thin and slender figure. Wearing an ordinary gray robe, you can see the curve of a narrow waist and narrow hips on his body. He indeed looks thinner than he was more than 3 years ago, but Zonyan called her to come. She opened her mouth and said that she had lost weight. Lily thought about it and felt something was wrong. She wanted to explain a few words, but when she saw that Zonyan didn't seem to take it to heart at all, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "How did senior brother know where I was and send a message to me?" Seeing that Zonyan ignored what she just said, he couldn't help but ask again. Zonyan is within the scope of Lingwu Mountain, which is not even close to Jianzhong. It takes half a cup of tea to fly with a sword. At such a long distance, if you want to transmit a message to one person alone, you may have to have a cultivation level of nascent soul or above. Although Zonyan is well known in the Xinglan Sea genius, but the most he can survive at this moment is the early stage of the Golden Core. To enter Yuanying, not only talent is needed, but also great opportunities. Even if Laiyan Temple has countless resources to supply him, he is still too old. Smaller. The secret method of the section, Zonyan replied. When Lily made a blood contract with the Kinkan bag he gave him a few years ago, he personally cut Lily's finger and took the opportunity to take a drop of her blood. He spent several months, fusing the drop of blood taken from Lily into his own spiritual power. He could roughly sense what she was doing and the distance between her and him. Zonyan gave her some valuable information that day. He called his jade token, but she had not called him once in several years. Zonjian also went into seclusion once in the middle, so he did not look for her. Recently, he was released from seclusion, and the master asked him to go into seclusion with all his strength. In 10 years, the internal shock reached the early stage of the golden elixir, so he sensed that Lily did not seem to be meditating and practicing recently, so he called her out. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 849. Zonyan had a vague hunch that if he told the truth that a drop of her blood could sense so many things about her, she would definitely be wary, so he said something half-truth, and Lily believed it. When it came to the words secret method of the sect, she didn't even have the nerve to ask further. Most of the monks from different sects in the world of immortality have their own unique methods. Lily nodded. Senior brother called me out, what can I do? You are already in the foundation establishment stage, and the sword sect's mental methods are not suitable for you. Have you ever thought about learning any exercises that you like? There are not many suitable exercises for women, and even fewer if Lily likes them. Although Behi himself has studied the Tao Te Ching, when Zonyan asked this question, his heart couldn't help but move. Is there a technique suitable for me to learn in Laiyan Temple? Although the Tao Te Ching is a magical Taoist magic, it requires a lot of time to practice. In the early stage, the magic power of the Tao Te Ching can only deal with some ghosts and ghosts. If it is used to fight with monks, it will not be enough. If there are to practice all the exercises at the same time. In the early stage, there are exercises that can support you through it. Once the power of the Tao Te Ching is revealed in the later stage, that's when Lily really needs to feel relieved. However, Zonyan has no relationship with her, and the skills between the various sects have never been passed on to others. Although he is nominally a subordinate of the sect affiliated with Laiyan Temple, in fact, most of the Jianzhong is protected by Laiyan Temple. The Jian zone usually it's just a tribute to spiritual stones and medicinal materials. There is usually no relationship between the two sections, let alone whether there are any techniques suitable for him to learn in Leiyin Temple. Even if there are, even if he has a special status, if he can pass on the secret skills of Leiyin Temple to own, it will also be troublesome for Zhong Yan. No, Zhong Yan shook his head and glanced at Lily, but there are many sects in the Xinglan Sea. I don't have one. Others always have. He is a monk. He actually came up with such an unbelievable idea, and he also had a calm and serious look on his face. His expression was cold and ordinary, and even revealed a sense of solemn sanctity. At this moment, he proposed to rob other sects as if it was natural. The secret code of Dharma is like this. With such a shameless and domineering attitude and such a trustworthy look, Lily was speechless for a long time. After a long time, her eyelids twitched twice and she decisively rejected Zhong Yan's proposal. Thank you, senior brother, but my little sister has received a secret law inheritance and has found a spell that is suitable for me to practice. It is just that the power is slightly weaker in the early stage. Before the golden elixir, I plan to practice in seclusion. After the golden elixir, the spell must be slightly weaker. But senior brother once gave me a purple bee. Senior brother, do you still remember, if Zhong Yan has a ready-made skill, that's it? Lily owes him a favor, and she can find a way to repay it later, but if he doesn't have a skill. Now that she had to rob it for herself, she owed a big favor. Instead of being greedy for too much, she might as well practice on her own and cultivate the purple bee well. She summoned the purple bees, and 13 purple bees were buzzing around her. When Zhong Yan heard what she said, he saw that in just 3 years, she had killed more than 12 others. The purple bee, which took more than 10 years to evolve, had evolved to this point, so he nodded. The issue was not raised again. His hands, which were originally folded together in front of his chest, stretched out. He touched Lily's head and took it back before Lily could react. Since you have an idea in mind, I won't say much. I came here to tell you that I am going to retreat. I hope that my junior sister will advance to Jindan as soon as possible. See you later. He finished speaking very seriously. He nodded to Lily. After saying this, he seemed to have received some message. He didn't say anything more to Lily. Before leaving, he handed her another kinkin bag. Before he even said goodbye to Lily, he turned around and walked towards her. Walking in Lingwu Mountain, it seemed at first that his steps were not very fast, but each step he took made him go very far. Within 3 or 5 steps, his figure disappeared into the dark green trees of Yunwu Mountain, and his figure gradually disappeared. Lily was not kidding. She was indeed preparing to practice in seclusion. She thought of the purple bees in the spirit beast bag. Since she had come to Lingwu Mountain, she searched around the outside of the mountain and collected some medicinal materials for making poison. In the kinkin bag, he hurried back to his cave. In the following time, Lily prepared these medicinal materials and threw them into the spirit beast bag. As soon as the purple bee, which had just advanced, was stimulated by these medicinal materials, it became manic again, and its demand for spiritual power became much greater again. Lily threw down the elixirs she had prepared in batches. During this period, she took out all the medicinal materials from the kinkin bag given to her by Zhong Yan, refined them into elixirs, and fed them to the purple bees. She occasionally went out to collect some medicinal materials to induce poison, and added last time when she practiced the star training technique, the cave was filled with spiritual energy. Under such an environment, in less than 5 years, in addition to her own success in reaching the 5th level of the foundation building stage, those purple bees once again appeared with each other. Devouring the scene, he fell into a deep sleep. As soon as Zigby fell asleep, Lily began to focus on her own practice. The years passed by like a ridge, and 50 years passed by. During these 50 years, Bee in Lily's spirit beast bag once woke up and was once again captured. Lily used means to induce sleep and fell into a deep sleep 3 times. Now the number of bees in the swarm has reached 36, each of which has the strength of the late stage of foundation building. In the past 2 years, it has been determined that the materials for raising voodoo are essential to induce sleep. After the cooked purple golden king bees had a certain effect, Lily spent a lot of effort to find a lot of such ingredients. Under the continuous stimulation, in the past 2 years, the purple bees began to be restless to devour them again, so this year Lily spent most of her time raising bees using her spiritual power. It wasn't until she ripened the bees into a deep sleep that she began to prepare for the golden elixir stage. It is precisely because she spent most of her time on beekeeping during these 50 years that her own cultivation has been stuck at the 10th level of perfection in the late construction period, without making any further progress. As soon as the bee swarm fell asleep, Lily naturally followed suit. In 10 years, she successfully reached the early stage of the golden elixir. 5 years ago, the bee swarm had already woken up. After Lily fed the elixir she had prepared to them, in addition to refining the elixir, she also used the bees to prepare the elixir. He summoned a group of them and attached them to the stone wall, letting them absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that he had attracted through his physical training. In this way, he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. He absorbed the endless spiritual energy, absorbed some of the elixirs he refined, and absorbed all the remaining purple bees. Nothing is wasted. Junior sister Haitang already has the cultivation level of the foundation establishment stage. Logically speaking, you should change to a cave. The master of the caves of the sword sect allows you to choose at will after entering the golden core stage. Lily has been consolidating her cultivation without taking a step out of the cave. During this period, she also had 2 conversations with Zhongyan and knew that he was also in retreat. When she heard someone talking outside the cave, she suddenly thought that she was refining elixirs and running morals by the way. Lily woke up from the sleepiness. When she opened her eyes, the swarm of bees that had been quietly attached to the stone wall began to flap their wings and fly buzzingly. Now the bee swarm has reached more than 40, each one is about the size of a dragon eye. When the bee swarm last woke up from sleep, each one had the early stage strength of the golden elixir similar to that of the lily. These purple bees were purple all over, and their faces were the ferocious, originally soft body was now covered by a layer of pale golden hard shell. Lily had tried it before, and these hard shells were extremely hard. She used magic but it only left shallow marks on it, while the bee swarm as Fenrir's strength increased, the venom became much more ferocious than before. These tentacles could easily tear apart the body protecting aura of a monk of the same level. As soon as Lily woke up, the bee swarm sensed the owner's strange movements and flew towards her. They stayed on her body for a while, absorbed some spiritual energy, followed Lily's instructions and entered the spirit beast bag, and gradually became quiet. Come down. The sounds outside were getting closer and closer. The cave here was located at the edge of Jian Zone. Lily had lived here for 60 or 70 years, and no one had ever come here. She didn't know why someone would come here today, so she let her go carefully. 1 mental power went out and touched 4 mental powers. Except for one of the mental powers that was slightly sensitive, the other 3 mental powers had no reaction to her temptation. In other words, there should be 4 people coming from outside, 3 of whom are slightly lower in strength, at least under the golden core stage, otherwise it would be impossible not to sense her presence, and the other spiritual power is slightly stronger, but after discovering she failed to intercept her at the time, so it is conceivable that her strength is only in the late stage of foundation building, and it is not worth fearing. 2 of these 3 weaker mental powers were familiar. Lily sighed. Sure enough, she was hiding here to practice, but she would always come to her door if she was supposed to encounter them. I don't want to choose. I want to live next to senior brother's cave. The voice got closer and closer. The person who spoke was a delicate female voice, which seemed a little unhappy. The person who spoke at the beginning couldn't help laughing when she heard her words. After 2 clicks, a cold voice sounded helplessly. "All right, little Haetang, be obedient and stop fooling around. Although my cave aura is sufficient, my cultivation level is higher than yours. If I practice, most of the aura will be absorbed by me, which will be detrimental to your cultivation. Senior brother is doing this for your own good. It will also be good for you to choose a cave with abundant spiritual energy to settle down." Luo Chen's voice had not been heard by Lily for decades, and she frowned when she came to her cave for some unknown reason. When I got up, the charming female voice outside, which was just dull, suddenly raised her voice. "Senior brother," Xiaomao said that he sensed that there seemed to be a senior nearby. "Let's go take a look." As she said this, Luo Chen smiled helplessly and fondly. "You are really like a child." To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 850. Luo Chen has a cold temperament, and he has never spoken to Li Beihe in such a tone in his memory. Several people walked towards the side with smiles. The closer they got, Lily could hear Luo Chen outside without using any mental power to listen. The voice became a little serious. "The cave here is actually so rich in spiritual energy," he seemed a little surprised, and the girl who just spoke cheered, "Brother, I like this place. There are mountains and water here, it's so beautiful. I can put the little one here. If the cat is released, it will no longer scare people. Moreover, the kitten will have its own independent space, so it no longer has to stay in the spirit animal bag. Senior brother will help me chop out a stone platform here. I need to put a stone table on it. When senior brother comes over, you can eat the special dishes I made and brew peach blossom wine from the spiritual spring. Hee, it would be great to call master once in a while. I want to be here planted full of camellias. My mother really liked camellias at first, and the spiritual tea made from camellias is very fragrant. You can place a gukin next to the stone table. Then I will play the piano and my senior brother will show me the sword dance, okay?" The girl's voice sounded a little excited. Although Lily's cave had insufficient spiritual energy when she first entered the mission, the environment was indeed first class. However, Lily usually focused on her practice, so she didn't like to go there no matter how good the environment was. After taking care of it for a long time, the grass outside the cave was overgrown, and there was no sense of beauty. Fortunately, she didn't care about it. She didn't expect that Luo Chen and a group of people would come here at this moment, and they would immediately recognize this place as the original place. Dongfu, which no one else likes, fell in love with at first sight. Willful, Luo Chen pretended to scold him. The girl was not afraid and seemed to be pulling him to beg. "Senior brother, okay, Tanger will sing for you and dance for you. Just promise me." Luo Chen has always been cold and arrogant and doesn't look down on others. He is obsessed with training and rarely leaves his cave. Not only would he be accompanying someone to search for a cave, but he could also manipulate a girl to act coquettishly with him. Apart from Chen Wantang, who was in love with Luo Chen in the plot, Lily really couldn't think of anyone else. It made Luo Chen look at him in a different light. In addition, this girl calls herself Tanger again, and the most important thing is that Luo Chen calls her Xiao Haetang. This is Chen Wantang's exclusive nickname for her. After she entered the sword section, when Li Beihe heard Luo Chen call Chen Wantang like this, she was still upset for a long time. Because of this, she saw Chen Wantang with a bad face several times, so that Luo Chen lectured her twice, thinking that she felt that Chen Wantang was older than her. She is about the same age, but she entered the profession late, but her cultivation is higher than hers, so Li Beihe is just a taster. At that time, Luo Chen felt that Li Beihe was too narrow-minded. He said that she was doing this a few times and was detrimental to her practice. From then on, he became much colder towards her. At this time, Lily heard someone coming. She had just prepared a batch of elixirs in the cauldron and was about to collect them. While staring at the cauldron, she was distracted to listen to the movements of a few people outside. Chen Wantang had acted coquettishly. Afterwards, Luo Chen seemed to have nothing to do with her, so he reluctantly agreed. "It's up to you." "Naughty little girl. Hey. Senior brother is the nicest to me." "I like senior brother the most." Chen Wantang laughed twice. Luo Chen coughed a few words. He seemed a little embarrassed and said nothing. Another male voice laughed dissatisfiedly. "Little junior sister, you like senior brother the most. What about me? I have been looking for a cave for junior sister for several months. I also found this cave for you. This spiritual tea and spiritual wine are not mine, little junior sister. I don't want to miss your special dishes and dances. Of course I can't forget senior brother Su Ming. You and everyone are doing well, he he." As soon as she finished speaking, the two people outside started laughing. Lily's eyes and mouth twitched when she heard this. The people outside finally had enough laughter, and Luo Chen asked. "The aura of this cave is so rich, could it be the residence of a senior in the sect?" The little cat just said that it seems that he has met a senior. Although Luo Chen wanted to fulfill Chen Wantang's wish, he was also afraid of collision. Which senior master? After all, Jianzhong occupies a hilltop belonging to the sect affiliated with Lei Yin Temple because of taking refuge in Lei Yin Temple. However, caves with real spiritual veins are extremely rare. Most of the caves with strong spiritual energy are controlled by the section. The elders occupy some caves with slightly thin spiritual energy and distribute them to the favored disciples under each elder. After being assigned layer by layer, the remaining ones will be chosen by other ordinary disciples. Luo Chen had never been to this cave before, and he had never remembered such a cave in the records of the Sword Sect, which was full of aura and beautiful environment. He suspected that this was not an ownerless thing, so although he wanted to satisfy Chen Wantang's wish, but she wanted the man whom Chen Wantang had just called senior brother Su Ming to investigate, so she was afraid that he would suffer if he collided with the senior. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, Chen Wantang became a little unhappy. "If any seniors are here, just go in and take a look and you will know." What if the seniors are in retreat, and a few people rush in? Firstly, they disturb others, and they may go crazy. Secondly, if others are not in retreat, I'm afraid that breaking in like this will also make the seniors crazy. Not fast. Especially since the few of them have been talking outside for such a long time, but there is no movement inside, and no one has come out to yell at them. It is conceivable that the possibility of the expert being in retreat is very high, and it is unbearable during the process of cultivating immortals in retreat. Su Ming was afraid of disturbing other people's Qingxiu even if it interfered a little. Once the seniors were blamed, the master of the two brothers and sisters of Luo Chen was the sword section with him protecting them. They would naturally have no worries, but he was different. Well, if the senior was injured, he would be unlucky if he was blamed, so he hesitated and was about to speak, but Chen Wantang stamped her foot. "Senior brother Su, let's just take a look. Tang-er really likes it here. If there is a senior living here, Tang-er can just replace it with him. I also have several treasures given by master here. If they are not enough, go back and find them. Master, do you want 2 more things?" After she said this, Su Ming and Luo Chen had nothing to do with her. Ever since Chen Wantang entered the sect, her cheerful personality and innocent and playful appearance were very lovable. Not only the sect masters in the sword sect loved her, but also the ones who had always loved her. The cold Luo Chen also looked at her differently, not to mention that the senior brothers in the sect were eager to bring good things to her. When she lied, Luo Chen ordered Su Ming to check if anyone lived here first. Su Ming he reluctantly responded and said after a long time. Elder brother, there are indeed people living here, but they were inhabited 70 years ago. Is there someone living there? When Chen Wantang heard this, she was a little disappointed. Who is it? The disciple known as Su Ming sighed helplessly. 70 years ago, Li Beihe lived here. Who is Li Beihe? This time the questioner was no longer Chen Wantang, but Luo Chen. There was a bit of doubt in his words, and he was obviously very unfamiliar with this name. The aura of this cave is so rich, it stands to reason in terms of being able to live in it. It should only be owned by the peak elders who have reached the golden core stage or above, but in this sect, I have never heard of an elder named Yal. Did you remember it wrong? Chen Wantang trusted Luo Chen very much. When Luo Chen said he didn't remember this Lily, she couldn't help but ask. At this moment, Lily in the cave couldn't help but sigh when she heard the conversation of several people outside. The original owner, that idiot, was thinking about how to thank Luo Chen, the senior brother who had taken care of her for many years, for his care that day, and for being taken under the sect master's lap in Li Beihe after his parents died. At that time, he had given her a few words of advice, thanking him for being the only one who was willing to warn her and teach her when the original owner was most helpless, panicked and didn't know what to do. She regretted her original temper. It was strange that she didn't have time to thank him until she died, but she never thought that she was in the senior brother's heart, but now he can't even remember her name. He had only disappeared for 70 years. This number sounded long, but compared with the monks in the world of cultivation who often spent hundreds of years in seclusion, 70 years was not a long time. If Luo Chen really wanted to kill the original owner, keeping it in mind, even if he only had a rough impression of her, let alone 70 years, even if 700 years had passed, at least there should be a shadow in his heart. But now he said something like this. After all, the two of them had a nominal friendship, but now if Su Ming hadn't reminded him, Luo Chen would have completely forgotten about the original owner. Lily's eyes became cold, and she stared at the elixir that was constantly turning under the true fire of samadhi in the cauldron. At this moment, the elixir was about to take shape, and the cave was filled with rich spiritual energy. The people outside did not know what was going on. I am afraid that the spiritual energy she attracted through physical training is just a spiritual vein in the cave, so she came up with the idea of this cave. Senior brother, wait a moment. Su Ming heard Luo Chen's question and responded respectfully. In a short time, he quickly found the original owner's information. This junior sister Li was also one of the disciples who became a disciple of the sect leader at the beginning. He entered the school first before junior sister Haitang. Senior brother, Su Ming shouted in surprise and said, this junior sister Li she was originally the only daughter of the former master of Tianxiang Hall and elder Li of the Hidden Sword Pavilion. During the demonic war 70 years ago, both the master of Tianxiang Hall and elder Li died. Therefore, junior sister Li was helpless and the sect master felt sorry for her. But he went and took her as one of his disciples. However, this little junior sister's talent was not outstanding, she only had 5 spiritual roots. Therefore, she had not made any progress in her cultivation in the 2 years after joining the sect master's section. The spiritual tablet in the sect still showed, given her name, her cultivation should be in the early stages of chi refining. Now that decades have passed, this little junior sister is not very talented, and I don't know if she is still alive now. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 851. Su Ming paused for a moment before speaking again. Because her cultivation level is too low, the sect has not extracted a trace of her soul to refine it into a card. Now I don't know if she has passed away, he sighed, and Luo Chen listened for a long time before he seemed to finally remember. Like such a person, he said coldly. I remembered that her talent is too poor, her character is too dull, and she only focuses on swallowing pills. I am afraid that even if she can forcefully enter the late stage of chi refining with the help of pills, it will be difficult for her to enter the building with her qualifications. Chi, now she shouldn't be called junior sister, she should be called senior nephew. Lily stared at the elixirs that were gradually taking shape in the cauldron, looking at the golden lines that slowly appeared on the elixirs due to the absorption of spiritual energy. When she heard Luo Chen's words full of contempt, she couldn't help but curl up her lips and laugh. Senior brother, how come I didn't know that master once had a disciple? Chen Wantang seemed a little annoyed when she heard that Luo Chen also remembered this person named Li Beihe. Does senior brother like her? Otherwise, how could he remember her? Is it that clear? Don't talk nonsense, little Haitang. How could I like her? She and I have different paths and we don't collude with each other. Master hopes that I can break through the golden elixir within 50 years, and this Li Beihe can break through the foundation building in her lifetime. Not bad, how could I fall in love with her? Luo Chen seemed to be afraid that Chen Wantang would misunderstand, so he explained a few words. The master saw how pitiful she was when she lost her parents, so he accepted her as a registered disciple. She is very busy and does not have time to teach her the exercises and formulas, so I occasionally give her some free time to teach her. Unfortunately, this person cannot be carved out of rotten wood. She does not follow the right path and only walks along the side paths. More than 60 years ago, I was in Tianxiang Hall. I saw her once, and she was arguing with the disciples in the palace over some information about the remote valley pill. It was really unbecoming of a master and a disciple, so I kindly gave her a few words of advice. Don't take too much of this pill. Self-cultivation is the right path. Relying on the skills of outsiders, the magic power has been improved. It will never be a great weapon, even if there are enough medicinal materials. She will stop at the middle stage of foundation building in her life. I think it will be difficult to make any progress. Luo Chen made some comments, and Chen Wantang seemed a little pleased when she heard what he said, and her depressed voice became a little cheerful and lively. Senior brother gave her a few words of advice for her own good. She doesn't listen to the old man's words. But she is at a disadvantage. Senior brother, Tang will you listen to your words? He. You are different from her. You are master's disciple. She is just registering her name. I can say a few words to her at most. If she listens, it will be of endless use to her in her life. If she cannot listen, it will be no wonder that she dies. Among others, little Haitang is still the best. Luo Chen praised her a few words. Chen Wantang laughed he twice, and Su Ming also smiled in a flattering manner. A good word can warm the winter, but it's a pity that the musician's nephew doesn't understand this truth. Whether she understands it or not, it's pity that elder Li was so talented, but he raised such a daughter. When Luo Chen said this, he seemed impatient to talk about this topic anymore. He waved his hand. Okay. I won't mention her anymore. Since she is the one who lives in this cave and it has never changed in the past 60 or 70 years, I guess she just hasn't been reborn. I'm afraid she won't be able to use such a good place. It's just that such good resources within the sect have been occupied by a disciple with 5 spiritual roots for so long. It seems that I will report to the master and let him investigate the actual situation of the various caves in this sect. Otherwise the extremely talented disciples will not have enough caves now, and such a good location will be wasted by people who have no use. Speaking of this, Luo Chen paused. Let's go in first. As soon as he finished speaking, several people broke through the simple restrictions on the entrance of the cave. Back then, the cave here was sparsely populated, and it was located on the edge of the section. It had neither spiritual veins nor much spiritual energy. It was located in a remote location. Normally, the sect disciples would not easily come here. Lily has stayed here for more than 70 years, and still she has never been disturbed by other disciples in the sect, and she is not very proficient in the formation prohibition. Therefore, she has not set up any complicated restrictions in the past few decades, but now it is easily broken by a few people. Banned. Lily sat quietly in the alchemy room. 5 or 6 pills were spinning in the alchemy cauldron. A large amount of abundant spiritual energy was slowly absorbed into the elixir. She also stopped practicing physical skills. The spiritual energy was absorbed by the elixir. After collecting the medicine completely, layers of golden lines appeared on the surface of the elixir. She waved her hand and the cauldron lid flew up. Several gold-lined elixirs full of spiritual energy flew into her palm and were thrown away by her. Entering the spirit beast bag hanging on his waist, the originally peaceful swarm inside became commotion again. They greedily devoured several pills. There were no lilies in the room to attract spiritual energy, and these few pills were missing. Except for some spiritual power still remaining in the cauldron of the elixir, most of the rich spiritual energy just now dissipated in an instant. This cave is very small. It was originally used by an ordinary inner disciple. It was suitable for a little girl like Ellie Behi to live alone. It was naturally more than enough, but the inside was not very spacious. The person broke through the restriction and rushed in, and soon discovered the strange changes in the spiritual energy here. The spiritual energy was strong just now. Why is it gone after just a while? The person who spoke was Su Ming. Just when Luo Chen was about to speak, Lily stood up, divided his spiritual energy into 4 parts and released it. There were several muffled sounds coming from outside. These people did not expect that Lily living in the cave was still alive. Even if they guessed that she was still alive, they did not expect that her strength would reach the golden core stage. Leng Huiwei, after receiving this mental attack, they all screamed. Lily released a 5 thunder spell from her palm, and the thunder and lightning she summoned pierced the dark cave and fell on the 4 people. Suddenly there was a thunder and lightning, and there was a burning smell all around. It was reported that when Su Ming saw the thunder light, he shouted that it was not good and wanted to retreat, but it was too late. Several people screamed at the same time and quickly retreated, holding their chests and vomiting. The blood came. Which senior sister or senior brother is here? This is Luo Chen, the eldest disciple of the sect leader Lu Yishan. Lily had no good impression of Luo Chen at all at this moment. Sure enough, the Luo Chen imagined in the original master's mind was her figment. Beautiful illusion. After personal contact with him, I found that this person is really narrow-minded and not as kind as the original owner thought. What makes Lily feel a little ironic is that she met him once by chance when he was begging for remote valley pills in Tianxiang Palace decades ago. Such a small incident still lingers in his mind, even though he has already forgotten it. Li Bei had completely forgotten about him, but at that time he still remembered that he had refused his request not to take Xiaogudan. It was really unbelievable that he was so narrow-minded. What's more, she didn't mean not to listen to Luo Chen's opinions at that time, but it was just because Luo Chen's opinions were just words on paper, but they were useless in actual implementation. At that time, she was a cheerifying disciple with 5 spiritual roots. If she did not take the Xiaogu pill, her situation in the sect would be so difficult. She would be looked down upon even if she wanted to eat a bowl of rice. If she did not take the Xiaogu pill, how could she survive? During the base period, Luo Chen herself also knew that she was just a registered disciple, and she had not benefited from the benefits of being a disciple of the sect leader. If she was so talented, how could she easily reach the foundation building stage with her hard work? What he said that day was nice, but he didn't care about the actual situation. He still remembers such a trivial matter because he talked back to him. Such a big heart is not comparable to that of the original owner. Lily walked out of the cave in a hurry. At this moment, the 3 people outside the cave were supporting each other. Luo Chen's mouth was full of blood and he was desperately taking out the elixir and stuffing it into his mouth. Chen Wantang's face was on the side. Ruhanzi, who had obviously taken the elixir, was sitting cross-legged on the ground. When Lily came out, only another young disciple in blue with a slightly unfamiliar face was vomiting blood, breathing heavily, and holding him up. He looked at his chest as if he was seriously injured. What I heard from senior brother Ludo just now was like an enlightenment, but my little sister really didn't know that what I heard from you in Tianxiang Palace that day was better than 10 years of reading. Now I have also heard senior brother Ludo say that elixirs are always just heresy. I don't know. Why does senior brother continue to swallow these heretical things now? Lily narrowed her eyes when she came out of the hole. She had been in seclusion for more than 60 years. During these 60 years, she had never taken a step out of this cave. Suddenly she saw the sky again, and when the sun shone on her, she heard her voice, and she had a look of pain on her face. Su Ming subconsciously raised his head. Luo Chen's hand that was originally holding the medicine froze in mid-air. He raised his head and looked over, only to see a figure wearing light blue palace clothes slowly coming out of the cave. It was a little smaller, with a pair of ankles exposed. The white jade-like feet were bare, and they looked like lotus steps and flowers when walking. Luo Chen looked up along the feet and saw a young girl with long black hair and a cold expression slowly walking out of the cave. The girl's appearance is vaguely familiar, as if she has seen it somewhere before. She has a small face, but her eyes are extremely well-born, slender and black, and her eyelashes are curled, which seems a little too much. On the pale skin, it looked like two deep pools. The cold look in her eyes had the finishing touch, adding a finishing touch to the girl's originally beautiful face. The eyes were looking forward to the brilliance, and the deserted feeling made people dare not look directly, but they couldn't help but want to take another look. This face seemed to have been seen somewhere before, but when I saw it that time, it was clear that she didn't look like this. Luo Chen gasped, and Chen Wantang, who was meditating with her eyes closed, opened her eyes, and a flash of light flashed in her eyes when she saw Lily. There was a look of surprise, and then her eyes subconsciously fell on Luo Chen's face. When she saw Luo Chen staring at Lily non-stop, she bit her lips and couldn't help coughing. Luo Chen seemed to reply. After coming to his senses, Chen Wantang glanced at her with concern. Tears of grievance welled up in Chen Wantang's eyes. She gritted her teeth, looked away, and snorted softly from her nostrils. To be continued.